Now, July is Men's Month, and in a country where a number of homicides take place every day, the Men Pour Out movement is on a mission to react. It wants to help change the lives of women whose hearts have been broken by men's words, deeds, and actions. But for more on this, I'm joined by Xolani Jwaga from the organization and Masechaba Mkheti, a victim of abuse. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
I suppose let me start with you, Mkheti. I mean, I would like to believe that you're a victor as well. Having, being brave enough to come on such a national platform to talk about your story is not easy for most women who have been in your situation. What have you gone through?
So my story of abuse started when I was very young, age of 5 or 6. And it was a family member who took advantage of me. And for the longest time, I kept quiet about it until about high school. And that came out and the counseling session started. But it was in a public platform in a way that the apology had to come out in front of other relatives, including my parents. And that was very hard.
Right.
And I kind of put that away, and I went through a period of about, let's say, 20 years actually post that, when I was about 15 or 16. And towards my mid-30s, I completely fell apart. I just destructive behaviors and hurt people in the process. And I just got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore.
And I find that it's often sort of like a symptom we find in most women who don't speak out, because it's sort of it's almost as if you're trying to fight, this reminder on your own without the help that you need, without the closure that you need. Why do you think that's the case, where women find it difficult to say something?
For one, I was in denial, because in a space in South Africa where this is so prominent, and unfortunately it is I was another statistic, and I had so many other things working in my life that was going so well. Friends who care about me, a family that loves me, despite that abuse. I had a good job amidst very tough economical circumstances. So why was I still having issues? And most of the time, abuse gets painted as this thing, as that there's a person who's suffering from an economical perspective, or a status symbol of some sort that they're not quite getting. But I lived a comfortable life. On paper, everything looked good, but I was broken.
Inside.
I was broken inside.
And Xolani, I suppose this is part of the reason why you took the onus upon yourself, number one, as a man, number two, as a member of the society, to say, as men, let's do better. And let's start with conversation. Take me through the start of the organization Men Pour Out.
The Men Pour Out started actually 2-3 months ago. It's a movement that pays homage to women. And we want to appreciate women, tell them that we love them, take full responsibility of our own actions. And we want to, another thing that we're trying to fight or deal with the ills that are socially affecting women. For example, the imbalance of power, abuse of the violence that they get from men. So what we're trying to do is actually say we are there, we are here. We want to say we apologize. We want to say we are sorry for even actions that we did not take. And we want to apologize on behalf of a man that is not apologetic about what they did. We want to say it is possible for one to move forward and not move on.
On one hand, Xolani, you do talk to women. You visit different centers for women. You hear out their cries. But do you also talk to perpetrators, even if they're not perpetrators, if they're just men in general? Do you have conversations, say, as Amajita, why is this happening? Why is this happening in our name? And if so, what do they say?
To tell you the truth, number one is we talk to men. We talk to, of course, like you just said, we go to women and talk to them in their space. But we have places where we sit down as men and say, this and this, no to this, no to this. We're not supposed to do this. So we have a platform. That is why a Men Pour Out, where people will come, men, to say, okay, I've done it. I'm sorry. And take responsibility. And what do you do after you say, I'm sorry? We take you to the person that is a victim and say, okay, talk to them so that they heal and move forward. forward with their lives.
And Mashaba, and I think it's easier said than done, sort of bringing a perpetrator into your space already violated, and you have to sort of have a forgiving heart and, give them the time to apologize or to even have a conversation. Is it easier said than done, whereby women can forgive men who have violated them?
It's easier said than done. So I think the journey of forgiveness for me was relying on God. It would not have happened with my own. I mean, when you think about it, you don't forgive the taxi driver who cuts in front of you, on a busy road, and you literally just want to chase after them. But
right.
Now somebody who's physically violated your personal space. And for me, it was forgiving my uncle, and I guess to a certain extent it was easier with him because he passed on. So you can't hold a grudge against somebody who's never going to be able to say, I'm sorry to you. They're gone. So it was the forgiveness of self for the ill treatment that I gave myself, the voices of you're not worth it, you don't have any value after that, and also just being able to forgive the people that were in my very close circle for not having protected me at that young age, and just to be able to love people through that process. And I can only say I only could do it because God does the most.
Yeah.
And he came through for me. And being surrounded by people who I could call upon to pray for me when it was really hard, when getting up was not an option, and it was either that or throwing myself at work and working 18-hour days, because then I could keep the voices quiet.
Right.
But I think a movement like Men Pour Out for me just says, let's actually just stop talking and start doing something.
Yeah.
It's about taking action, and what Xolani has just said about him talking to the men, I got a first-hand experience of what he does. Last week we were in a sharing session, and I actually said to him, I'm like, so do men just talk? And he's like, yes, we do. And he said a few things, and then he called a few of his friends over and he's like, what did I talk to you about earlier?
Yeah.
And the same story that he recounted, they confirmed it.
Yeah.
And they do, and he said, we do call each other out. So I think for me, it needs to be more than just these small groups of men who decide to do that, but it needs to start being let's have conversations, because men have been traumatized as well. And they have been victims of abuse in their own families as kids.
Right.
I just don't think abuse just falls from the sky.
There's certain unlearnings that have to take place as well. Colin, let me bring you in and talk to you about some criticism that I'm sure you've encountered or even read about from some women who say, yes, we want you to be a part of the conversation, we want you to be a part of the dialogue, but don't take away the agency from us as women. We've seen different women, especially with organizations such as the Total Shutdown, taking the initiative to say, you will not do this to us, and you will not do this to us 365 days of the year, not just only on Women's Month will you listen, or during 16 days of activism. How do you respond to that criticism that says we're afraid because maybe you're taking the power from us as men again by saying you want to help or perhaps talk to us?
Yes, we do get criticism, but we want to take it positive and be patient, because healing process is a process. Forgiveness is a process. So what we do, we are patient with everyone to say, okay, we understand you, because you need somebody that will say, I understand you. But now, after understanding you, I need to do something about it. So yes, we encounter those things, and how we deal with them is through being patient with them, keep on knocking at the door,
right.
And then they say, no, we're not ready. You get to a place where they say, hey, we're not sure about what you want to address, but now let's give you an opportunity next week. You go back next week, same applies, but eventually we get a chance to speak to them.
And what are the future plans for Men Pour Out? I mean, is it only targeted at adult women that you talk to, or are you infiltrating down to your high schools, where we're also seeing violence? Young girls also being violated at a very young age.
Yes, we actually want to take it to an extent where because now, for example, we grew up in the township where we look up to gangsters as role models.
Right.
And now we want to change that. We want to speak to the boy child, so that when he is a man, he knows what to do and what not to do. And we are also talking to orphanages. We've partnered with them so that we address these things as they are still young, so that when they grow old, they know what to do.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. It can't be easy, but it needs to be done. And thank you for taking that initiative.
Thank you so
Xolani Jwaga and myself, Mas Chabumkheti, thank you for being strong and coming onto Newsnight.
Thank you.